Welcome to Eat Blog Talk, where food bloggers come to get their fill of the latest tips, tricks, and insight into the world of food blogging. If you feel that hunger for information, we'll provide you with the tools you need to add value to your blog, and we'll also ensure you're taking care of yourself, because food blogging is a demanding job. Now, please welcome your host, Megan Porta.
Are you a motivated food blogger striving to meet financial or freedom goals? If so, then the Eat Blog Talk membership is for you. Take a journey with like-minded peers that will bring you past the overwhelm and straight into the arms of clarity. You will have direct access to guest experts delivering massive amounts of value into your business. You will have the opportunity to participate in monthly strategy calls, focusing on different aspects of food blogging, and most importantly, you will be part of a tight-knit, supportive, and encouraging family filled with people just like you. Visit eatblogtalk.com for more information, and the rest of us cannot wait to see you inside. Hey, food bloggers, welcome to Eat Blog Talk. This podcast is for you, food bloggers wanting value and clarity to help you find greater success in your business. Today, I'm so excited to have a chat with Carrie Forrest from cleaneatingkitchen.com. We are going to talk about establishing a niche for your blog. Carrie is the creator of Clean Eating Kitchen, where she shares easy, real food recipes for women recovering from chronic health issues. Carrie has master's degrees in public health and in business, and she is a survivor of autoimmune disease, PCOS, and thyroid cancer. Carrie has been an avid blogger since 2009. Wow, you've been blogging for a long time, Carrie. That's awesome. So in addition to that, do you have another fun fact to share with us today?
Hi, Megan. Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me on. And well, my fun fact is, maybe it's more of a funny fact, but I did not learn how to cook and actually really did not even know how to boil water until I was about 30 years old. So as a food blogger, I don't know, that seems a little counterintuitive, but yeah, I did not grow up learning how to cook, and I'm sure that contributed to some of my health issues, and really the extent of my cooking through graduate school and all that was baking a potato in the microwave and topping it with cottage cheese.
Okay, that is actually really funny. I love knowing that about you, and you're not alone. There are so many people I interview that say that same thing, that they didn't grow up with food. Their parents didn't teach them how to cook, but they somehow, through health issues or whatever, found a necessity to learn how to cook. So you're not alone with that, Carrie. I love it. The baked potato and cottage cheese sounds amazing. Oh, well, niching down is one of those buzz phrases right now, I feel like, right? So everyone is talking about how niching down can bring you the traffic and the people. Especially in recent years, food bloggers who have honed in on a really specific niche like you have managed to get to know their audiences better, and they've just gained traction all across the board more quickly. So I want to hear about your niche because you have a very specific one. Tell us how you determined your niche, Carrie, and just kind of talk us through that.
Yeah, and I will say that I think I was confused, or I still get a little confused because I see some blogging courses and blogging experts actually say not to, I say niche, but not to niche down. So I think it can be a little confusing, and sometimes I question what I'm doing. But when I really go back and look at even my success that I've had from when I started, it really did come from niching down and being really specific about who my audience was. So just as an example, when I first started blogging way back in 2009, I had been reading blogs, and I really just was like, I want to have a blog. I did not know. And at that time, I was kind of starting to learn how to cook. So I didn't even start as a food blog. I was just more like, I want to have a blog. And then as like maybe over a year, I started to see more like vegan blogs and more specific blogs. And I was kind of going in that direction of a like a specialty diet. And so when I actually was a vegan blogger from about 2010 to 2014, and ultimately I personally moved away from a vegan diet, so I changed my blog away from a specialty vegan diet or vegan blog. But I did see that once I really started being really specific about what I was going to blog about, then it was just like naturally I was able to draw an audience that really resonated with my message. So, I mean, I can kind of see it both ways. There's a benefit of having a niche, and I definitely have a niche to my blog now, which is like gluten-free and dairy-free. But then also, you don't, it's like you have to have both sides of the coin. You also want to have topics that will also draw in a wider audience. And so I can kind of see it from both ways, but I think ultimately, if you do talk to a specific audience member, you really are going to resonate so much more deeply with her and with an audience.
Do you agree with this? I've talked to a few people recently who just talk about the concept of older bloggers, not like age older, but like bloggers who have been around for a really long time, being able to not have a niche and be more successful. Whereas today, if there were a newer blogger who was just starting out, even just a couple of years under their belts, that it would be a lot harder. Do you think that's true?
I do. And I think that comes down to like when you look at the keywords, when you start doing keyword research and you just see, because the market really has become very saturated. So yeah, like if I had started 2009 and just had been like a healthy food blogger, I think I could have, like now I could probably go after keywords like just, I don't know, maybe like chicken salad or something. Whereas now, if you try to go after chicken salad, I mean, it's just too saturated. And so you're going to be likely more successful if you do something like a dairy-free chicken salad, or even like a vegan chicken salad or something like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you said that you kind of started out not even having a food blog, right? So you started out kind of not knowing which way you would go, and then you landed on food, and then you went to vegan, and then now your niche would be more like, did you say gluten-free and dairy-free recipes only? Is that kind of how it evolved?
Yeah, and because that's not maybe as kind of like sexy a term as like a vegan diet, or it's just not really as well known, I kind of make it a little bit broader to real food, like a real food diet. But then for my audience member, like my specific, I guess you could say like my ideal reader is that she really is probably gluten-free and dairy-free, because she's dealing with like some of the health issues that I had, like autoimmune disease. And there seems to be a little bit of a consensus in like the functional medicine space about autoimmune disease, that it's better to be gluten-free and dairy-free. So if somebody is really trying to manage her illness and she's like kind of dug down really deeply, she would likely be like, okay, I need to do a gluten-free and dairy-free. So then when I say that, she's like, oh, that's what I need. But then for like a little bit of a broader audience, or maybe somebody who just has food sensitivities, or she has like a child who has a dairy allergy, if I say real food diet, then that's like a little bit more, like it's more open and it's not quite as specific. But yeah, when I really get deep, dig down, it is all my recipes are gluten-free and dairy-free.
I love the way you described that. I think that was awesome. And also that you talk about your avatar as if, it is a she. You're like referring to her as she instead of just like a they, so you really seem to know who you're speaking to. And it also sounds like you landed on your ideal user very naturally, and there was a natural progression for you. But that doesn't happen with everyone. So what advice do you have for people who are starting out, or maybe they've been doing it for a while and they just have no idea who their person is or what their niche should be?
Yeah, I know. That is such a hard question. And honestly, I have thought about this for hours and hours and I don't know, maybe years over the years. It is a really, really it's hard because also you don't want to limit yourself. And so when you start to think about your avatar, you worry about alienating other people, but I think it is really important. And I'm sure we might talk about this, but I'm also kind of playing with YouTube, and I can't even believe I'm saying this, but I'm playing with TikTok. And oh my gosh, I have to say it's really fun and I like it a lot more than I expected. Really resisted TikTok, but it's fun. And so I think when you get into a video space as well, that also forces you to really think about your avatar. Because I've done some YouTube courses and we spent a lot of time doing that. But I would say if you're not, if you're not necessarily going into video, but you're really thinking about your blogger avatar, I think one great way to think about it is to think backwards. So whether you're just starting or maybe you're a few years in, really think about what you're building and where you want to be like 5 or 10 years from now, and then work backwards. And so when you think about like the business that you're growing, because you really are, when you're creating a blog, you are building a business, or you can build a successful business. What is it that you're going to be building? And then when you reach that point 5 or 10 years from now, like what do you want to see? Like what space do you want to be in? Who are you going to be talking to? And I think another way to think about it is what do your friends and family think that you're an expert in? Like, what do they come to you and ask you questions about? Most family members don't ask their like, I know my sister would never ask me for advice for most things. She probably hates when I give her advice, but there are a few things that she would ask me about. And like those are clues to what your niche could be, and like what you're an expert in, and what you could, and maybe even what your passion is. Because if people didn't see you as an expert, then you probably you probably have a passion for it if people see you as an expert in that topic.
I think that is the best advice ever. Seriously, like, what are the clues people are giving you? Because you have people who love you and who know you really well. And yeah, like they're asking you specific things. And it's also okay to come right out and ask them too, right? Like, what am I really good at? What do you think I'm an expert in? And if they, that might be a weird conversation for some people, but if it's your close friends and your family, they are most likely going to be willing to talk to you about that and say, I think you're great when you're hosting parties, or you make really delicious vegan food, or whatever it is. And those are the clues, as you said, Carrie. And then from there, you think about what you want in your business 5 years from now. I love thinking about that. And I love pushing people to think about that too, because it's such a long ways away. But just thinking like, do I want to be on the Food Network? Do I want to be doing the same thing I'm doing now? I mean, it could be as simple as that. But then working backwards is brilliant too. So I think that is like the most awesome strategy ever. And that gives people actionable steps like, oh yeah, I can ask my mom today and see what she thinks and start dreaming about my 5-year plan. I think that's awesome. Once you establish a niche and you're like, yes, this is where I want to go. How do you start finding an audience? Because that is for me, it was so hard to fill that gap. Like once I decided, okay, I do want to focus on this, where do I find those people? Are they already there? Do I have to go search for them? What do you think?
Yeah, and that's really hard too. And until you have a few loyal readers and you even like know their names, and maybe it's like for me, it's people who message me on Instagram or even email me, because then they're like, wow, they really do see me as an expert. I mean, I do have a master's degree, but I'm not a doctor. I'm not a nutritionist, but I get people, like a few loyal readers who they like really trust me, and like that's a really amazing feeling. But if you aren't quite there yet, I mean, I was there for a long time, and it's like, okay, my mom's reading my blog, and like that's about it. But Instagram is a really fantastic way to find your audience and to start to like carve your name out, or to carve your niche out, or to make yourself, I'm not saying it right, but to make yourself like a place, find yourself a place. So you can do that through hashtags. I've also found success in really specialty diet Facebook groups. And but Instagram, I find it seems to be probably the best place to start to, I think, carve a name out for yourself. That was the expression I was looking for. Yeah, but and then I also want to mention that in the Facebook groups is a great place to read through what other people are posting. Like, for instance, I'm in a gluten-free and dairy-free lifestyle group, and it's not always like appropriate for me just to go in there and like post a new blog post. I mean, I do that, but it's a really great place for me to see what questions people are asking, like what are they struggling with. I have my own Facebook group that's just kind of like a basic clean eating group, and I can post polls in there. So I can ask people like, what are you struggling with? I can give them a few options. And what is really interesting to me is I will always have a prediction of what I think the answer will be, like to a poll or to a question, and I'm usually wrong. So yeah, that's kind of interesting. I mean, I think you should like go with your own intuition about things, but I also find it very interesting to get direct feedback, like from my ideal reader, from my actual readers.
And Instagram, like you mentioned, Carrie, is a great place to do that because you have the polls feature and you have the questions, and you can do calls to action in your posts, and people respond on Instagram, I feel like, more than anywhere else, don't you?
Yes, definitely. Yeah, it's a great place for that kind of interaction.
Yeah, and it really all comes down to listening, just tuning in. You mentioned going to Facebook groups and just observing. What are people asking about? What are they talking about? What are they wanting? Take note, like literally take out your pen and paper and just write that down, because sometimes we can observe and then it kind of goes away, right? But if we write it down, then we've got it and we can go back and look at it, and then maybe it will align with what people are asking about on Instagram and all across the board. So I think that's great advice too. I want to touch on something you mentioned earlier about video. You mentioned that videos, like doing TikTok or YouTube or other live videos, kind of forces you to think about your avatar or your ideal user. Will you talk through that? Because I thought that was really interesting and I've never really thought about that.
Yeah, and I think it came from a course I took. I'll just go ahead and mention it, but there's like when I started digging down in the YouTube space, as a food blogger, you kind of automatically think, well, I'm going to do a cooking show. But I don't know, that didn't really appeal to me so much. And I think because like there's been the whole, like the hands in pans videos, which I think are maybe not as popular as they were in like 2000, I would say like 2014 to maybe 2018. Like I know bloggers grew their Facebook pages and Facebook traffic by huge amount doing the hands in pans videos, which, is like the 1 minute overhead tasty style. And so a lot of bloggers also put those videos on YouTube. And I did for a while, but YouTube is really a space, like it's much more intimate, and YouTube viewers really want to get to know the person who is on YouTube, and they want to know what your house looks like. And I mean, it's it's a little bit unnerving in how vulnerable you're expected to be on YouTube. And I have definitely not mastered it all. But I took a course called Video Labs, and there's a podcast. I think it's called Video Creators. I can double check, but the podcast has amazing information for people who are interested in tackling YouTube. But it's really different from vlogging. It's almost like building a second business, although they are attached. And I have seen other bloggers who do really well on YouTube have it translate into huge traffic for their blogs. But it's just it is a really big job. It's just not like something you can do on the side. So you kind of have to, like, I've gone ups and downs with YouTube where I was like, I am all in. But then honestly, like once I was able to monetize on YouTube, it is a fraction of the revenue that you can get from your blog. So for me, right now it makes more sense because my blog is growing for me to spend more time on my blog than YouTube. But part of what I learned when I was really digging into learning how to master YouTube is that it's almost even like more specific than your blog. Whereas like with your blog, we're talking about having a niche, but yet like on a blog, like my blog is gluten-free and dairy-free, but I have blog posts for it. My whole blog is not just specifically gluten-free and dairy-free. Like I have a post that does really well, how to freeze avocados. That's not at all specific to gluten-free and dairy-free. But yet on YouTube, if I did a video on how to freeze avocados, that really wouldn't generate a lot of excitement. So it's like a whole different beast. YouTube is.
Yeah, I've heard other people say that as well. It's just like an entirely separate entity, but you can incorporate it into your blogging business. But you can, like, some people really dive into YouTube and just do that as kind of like a standalone business, but it for food bloggers can be just like a complement, right? Is that a good way to describe it?
Yeah. And I think like it's also a really amazing place to build community. And I think one reason I have been drawn to YouTube and now TikTok is that blogging has changed so much in terms of community. And I mean, like I still feel connected to my audience, but it's really blogging. As you know, it's like a lot of it now is about keyword research. It's about finding topics that haven't been covered by like All Recipes or Healthline. So right now with my blog strategy, I'm not thinking I'm kind of thinking what's best for my audience, but I'm more thinking like, what's a keyword that hasn't been covered that is, good for my size and would generate me some traffic? Like, that's not really community driven. Whereas I feel YouTube is much more community driven, and like you get immediate comments on your videos on YouTube. Whereas I don't know, I rarely get comments on my blog anymore. It's just changed so much in that feeling of like community and stuff. Like I have there's a channel I watch on YouTube like religiously, and it's this lady in Italy, and she kind of blogs about her life and shows what it's like to live there. And she talked about and her husband, he's Italian and has an amazing accent, and everything. And he was saying like, this is like we are a family, like all of we make videos and you leave comments and we feel like you're our family. And I really felt like that, like, wow. Yeah, it made me feel so happy because I've been watching this channel for like since the pandemic started and watching the channel grow. And I really felt like that. And I have not felt like that with a blog, with my blog or any other blog for a really long time. And that's just the way that the industry has changed and, the way blogging has changed. But that's kind of like where I feel like video is kind of picking up the slack.
I love how you talked through that. I think you are so spot on with that. YouTube is great for community. And my son, as you were talking about the channel that you follow, my son is obsessed with this channel that's just like about a beagle puppy. It's called Oliver the Beagle. And it's so simple. This guy, the owner of the Beagle, just like shows Oliver's adventures. And I'm like, really? That's interesting. But he feels like that. He's like, Oliver is my friend. I'm like, okay. But yeah, I mean, totally community driven. And he goes on there. He's so loyal to it. But you're right. With blogs, it used to be the same. Like people would come on and they would comment on my posts. My older posts, I have 600 plus comments on some of my older posts. That never happens today.
Yes,
never.
Exactly.
Like if I get one or two, I'm like, that is awesome. That's a lot. But yeah, it is totally different. And keywords and keyword research is kind of how we think about our blog side. So if you do want that community and to get really specific with what you're delivering, YouTube is a good place to go. I love that, how you framed that, Carrie. So how do you recommend people dig into SEO with really niche topics? Because it is kind of overwhelming and it's kind of robotic sounding. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So not to harp on keyword research, but that is really the key to success for blogging right now. I mean, I really strongly believe that. And I mean, I spent years like writing content that nobody was searching for. Maybe my, I don't know, 10, 100 loyal readers read those blog posts when they were published, but then they were never read again. And so I spent the better part of 2020, and I guess this is like the silver lining of the pandemic in 2020 is I just had a lot of time to clean up my blog. So I ended up deleting probably about 600 blog posts. Yeah. So, and then I spent, the other part of the time, it's easy to delete, but it's harder to fix old blog posts, but I've been spending a lot of time doing that too. But I think SEO, search engine optimization and keyword research can be an indicator of like what your audience is looking for. So like I said, I'm constantly surprised like what my audience tells me, but SEO or keyword research is kind of also a way of your audience telling you what they want. Like I'm constantly surprised by, like, I'll think, oh, a dairy-free, let's see, like a dairy-free smoothie, like say a dairy-free strawberry milkshake. That's got to have a lot of, like, people have to be looking for that. Like, that sounds good to me. But then I do the keyword research and it's maybe 10 searches a month. So that is telling me, okay, no, that's not right. That's not what my audience or an audience is looking for. And then, maybe it's actually like a vegan strawberry smoothie is what they're looking for. So that's where keyword research comes in. And I think I also mentioned this too, but it's okay too to go outside of your niche. And I mentioned like how to freeze avocados, because your niche can start to feel like a prison, like you can't go out of it, but you can, because you also want a little bit of a wider audience than your niche, because you don't want to limit yourself, but you don't want to, like, I wouldn't make a post about how to make a raw milk smoothie, because that would be that's almost like the opposite of my niche. But I could make like an almond milk smoothie, a coconut milk smoothie. There's so many options. But yeah, so I think that's where keyword research comes in.
Yeah, it is super important right now, Carrie. I agree. And I know that you recently got an audit, right, with Casey Markey. And
yes,
he stresses that wherever he is, he talks to food bloggers all the time. He always says that too. Like, it's very important. I love what you said about not being afraid to go outside your niche a little bit, because it can feel like a prison. It can feel like, well, wait, that's not exactly aligning. But I think you could be surprised by some things that actually take off. I want to say like 2 years ago, I started making homemade sauces just because my husband had like stomach issues, and it seems like every store-bought sauce that we bought would have like yeast extract or something that would just like send him over the edge. So I was like, enough, I'm just going to start making my own. And I started putting them on the blog, and they're like top posts now. I mean, people love my sauces. I never would have thought that. And it doesn't align really with anything else that I do. Just experimenting a little bit, going outside of your normal, I think it really can't hurt. As long as it's not, like you said, totally contradictory. But if it fits in even a little bit, then I say give it a try.
Yeah. And I think also like when you're picking your niche, you do have to be a little bit careful. Like you do want to make sure, like if you right now in 2021, if you picked Instant Pot as your niche, like that's a little bit, because Instant Pot is still really popular, but is it going to be really popular in 10 years? Like it probably will be, but it's a little bit also of a saturated niche. And maybe, yeah. And also like you have to think, are you going to be as passionate about Instant Pot in 5 or 10 years as you are right now? So you have to be a little bit careful not to build your own prison. Like you don't want your niche to be like that. When I had a vegan blog, sadly, it just wasn't like the diet wasn't working for me or the lifestyle wasn't working for me for the long term. And I didn't anticipate that. And so, I mean, that was difficult to say, okay, this is not my niche anymore. And it is kind of interesting on my website. I have a few blog posts about like a vegan diet not working for me. And those continue to be among my most popular posts as well.
Oh, interesting. That is very interesting. Yeah. I think that anytime you incorporate an appliance into your niche, you have to be really careful because, I mean, the Instant Pot is huge, obviously, but yeah, you've got to kind of think ahead. Slow cooker, I mean, I feel like the slow cookers stick around forever. They've been in existence for eternity, so maybe the slow cooker would be a good option, but anything else, I'd be really careful. And you can incorporate those things into an existing niche, so you could do like I don't know, like easy dinners and have a bunch of Instant Pot recipes inside of that, but you're not locking yourself into like instantpotfoodforlife.com or something like that.
Yeah, I think that's good advice, not to base your niche around an appliance.
And I love the Instant Pot, but it can go into just about any area. So what if somebody has landed on a niche and they really like it, and then like you decided you wanted to go a different route or maybe expand a little bit into different areas? Do you have advice for that?
I would try to push the boundaries as much as you can. But at a certain point, like if you are, like say you are like me, say I do have like a real food, gluten-free and dairy-free diet. Let's say all of a sudden, magically, my health changed where I could eat gluten and dairy. You know what, honestly, what I would do, looking back on my experiences, is I would start a second blog instead of, like contradicting everything I've built and maybe trying to reverse everything. Is I would consider starting a new one. Because I think ideally once you've established yourself in a niche and I don't know, you don't want to be in that niche anymore, it's really kind of heartbreaking to have to tear down what you've built rather than either trying to, expand on your niche or just kind of push the boundaries a little bit. So I think I would try to get some advice before you do anything drastic. Yeah, and maybe even talking to like an SEO expert, just because I think it's easy. Like we're humans, so we're emotional people. And I mean, we just naturally, we have feelings about, and we like to have like break points. And we're like, okay, I'm not going to be, like for me, it was like, I'm not going to be a vegan blogger anymore. well, if I'd really like thought about it, like maybe there was a way to work with it rather than destroying, like really pushing away my audience. It was a really traumatic time for me. It's like 2004. It took it took many, many years, not just like emotionally, but like I really destroyed, my audience, my page views, my growth trajectory. And I hate to see bloggers go through that when you don't have to.
Oh, I like that advice, and I don't hear that often. I don't often hear bloggers saying, start a separate website. I actually do know one other blogger recently who decided to do that, and I was like, oh, this is a new concept, but kind of smart because, like you said, Carrie, going through that, you were devastated and you also pushed away your audience, which is not good. They were probably confused, right? Like,
Yeah,
wait, what is she doing? We're here for her. And now she doesn't want us. What kind of feedback did you get from people during that time?
Yeah, it was a rough time. And uh yeah, it was like I was going through my own like health issues and like my own kind of just swirling emotions, and then to feel like just being like I don't know, like rejected, and that I was irritating people, or for lack of better term. But yeah, it was a rough time. And I think, but I mean, in a way, I kind of blame myself. I was like, I latched on, like, I put myself in this community, and now I'm like extricating myself. So I kind of like did a lot of like self blame and things like that. But I think, that just kind of also speaks to when you're picking a niche, just you just have to not not put yourself into such a small box that if you do, because you are going to grow over time. So yeah, like if you do put yourself into like an instant pot box, and then you're going to grow over time, you're going to have new passions. So you have to be cautious about that. But I mean, I think also it's just like that balance, because like I feel really passionate and connected to like my gluten-free and dairy-free audience. And I don't like see any of that changing. And even if personally, like like every once in a while, of course, like I'll try like some dairy, and my body doesn't like that. So I don't see like myself not being a gluten-free and dairy-free blogger in the future. But even if even if I did change, I probably would stick to just doing gluten-free and dairy-free recipes, because that really is what I've kind of like built my foundation on.
Yeah. And you've learned from your past that taking yourself out of a world is harmful maybe to your people and to you. So you've learned from your own mistakes. So you want other people to learn that too. Just be really careful when you're deciding on a niche. Use the word prison earlier. Nobody wants to feel like they're in prison, right? So try to avoid that. Okay, what are your thoughts, Carrie, about making money as a niche blogger? We always hear about the big bloggers who make tons and tons of money, and they're typically not niche bloggers. They've got recipes from all different categories on their sites. But what do you feel about monetizing and being a niche blogger?
Yeah, so you definitely 100% can make money as a niche blogger. I think that also speaks to making sure that you aren't too specific, that you can't write about kind of broader topics. So it's just, it's definitely possible. I think that one way to like further your monetization is to keep an eye on what is working, and then to write more blog posts or more recipes around the topics that are working. And like I didn't really take that advice until a few years ago, but it has worked for me. And it can be a little frustrating because, like you said, you have no idea what blog posts or topics Google is going to like rank you number one for, and it might not even be something that is your niche topic. And so you're like, for instance, this is kind of funny, but like, gosh, many years ago, I wrote a butter coffee recipe. So butter obviously comes from milk, so that's a dairy product. And but for people who have dairy allergies, because dairy sensitivities, I should say, because butter is mostly fat, there's not a lot of like the protein that is inflammatory for people with dairy sensitivity. Somebody with a dairy allergy cannot have butter, but somebody just with a sensitivity can maybe get away with butter. So I rank really, really well for butter coffee, but yet I'm a gluten-free and dairy-free blogger. So now I haven't like made like butter tea. I don't know what other kind of drink recipes would be made with butter, but I've done a few other coffee recipes and I think they've done okay, but nothing like the butter coffee recipe. But just this idea of that, yeah, for sure you can make money as a niche blogger, and then you just keep an eye on what's doing well and do more of that.
Yes. Again, it comes down to listening and just observing and taking note. So you've been blogging for 11 years. I rarely find people who have been blogging as long as me, but that's a long time, Carrie. So how do you stay excited about blogging? People ask me that all the time and it's hard to answer it, but what keeps you excited? And then also, where do you see food blogging going in the future?
Yeah, so it is hard because to be honest, like to be a successful blogger, it becomes a little bit of like you have a template and you're kind of just filling in the pieces day after day with new recipe posts because it is kind of like there's a template that works. If you look at the most popular, or not even the most popular because they can actually get away with more. But if you look at my blog, for instance, most of the recipe posts are formatted the same way, and it's a format that works. It's SEO friendly. It's reader friendly. It's kind of like bare bones. It's not too many like personal stories, that kind of thing. So that can get really boring, and it's not like that. It's not as exciting to push publish as it used to be. Like 10 years ago, where then, like you said, you would get lots of comments immediately on your blog post. So for me personally, I think, well, the potential for growth and earnings is a part of it because this is my full-time career now, and I don't anticipate doing anything else, which is kind of crazy, but like that potential to see like revenue growing every month is exciting, and that is part of the motivation. But for me as like a creator, I also have to have a creative challenge, which of course can be like your food photography. You can constantly be improving on that. But for me, that's gotten a little bit boring. So I think that's why I've kind of been playing with video. It is, oh my gosh, such a creative challenge. Yeah, and to be in front of the camera rather than behind the camera is a huge challenge. But it's also exciting. And so that keeps me excited. And like where I see the industry going is I see like this kind of like the keyword stuff in terms of like giving people what they're looking for in like a recipe format and kind of a template that's been developed. I think that is the future. You know, I don't see like blogs becoming like these really personal journals like they used to be. So I think that's just going to continue, where blogs really are kind of like just an online cookbook. But I think that as humans, we continue to want to connect with people. And so I think that's where video is going to like really fill that space online.
What a great answer. That's a really good way to look at it. I think you're right. I think we're going to keep honing in on what is working as far as just creating a recipe post and not a journal. I don't think we'll ever go back to that journal style, which honestly, it's fine. We can find other avenues to connect and be creative. And I think you're right, Carrie. There's so many opportunities to stay creative and challenged in this world. So maybe you just think outside your blog a little bit if you're struggling with that, like, oh, this is getting boring. There's video, like you mentioned, TikTok, YouTube. There are so many different platforms that you can really dig into if you're getting bored. Like maybe you want to take 2021 to grow your Instagram following or something like that. And new platforms are popping up all the time. Now Clubhouse is on the scene and goodness, I mean, it's like you have never ending options, right? To dig into at any given moment.
Yeah. But you also have to kind of filter that because you don't want to get overwhelmed. Like I've been there too, where you're trying to do everything. And like, I'm still like a one woman shop. I don't have a lot of help. I pretty much do everything on my blog and just, I do my own Pinterest and everything. So that can be a little bit overwhelming to think about adding something new. But that's where I think you have to just look internally and see like where you're lacking. Like if you do want more of a creative challenge, or maybe you're motivated solely by revenue and, page view growth, which is totally fine. And that can be really motivating. So it really just depends on you as a blogger, like what you feel like, where you want to grow personally. And I think one thing that has become something that I've been thinking about recently is because I worked so hard in 2020, like I was so focused just on like repairing my blog and fixing it after just like so many years of, bad blog posts, that I kind of got into a bad habit of like not really having a separation of like work and personal life. And of course we were all home, so really easy. So I'm kind of putting some, like recently I've stopped publishing on the weekends, and that has been really really rewarding just to have a few hours off on a Saturday afternoon. And it kind of gives me more space to be creative because I'm not just like the next blog post. So you don't want to like try to do so many things that you get burnt out.
Oh, I love that. That speaks to me. I learned that lesson in 2020 and just started setting my work aside. I've been a blogger for, so many years who has just worked to the bone. And like I worked all the time. And in 2020, I kind of came to a point where I realized I need to set this down. I need to be showing up for my family and myself. And it was a game changer for creativity, for productivity. You'd be amazed how much more productive you can be when you set your work down. So that and like sleep, I was sleeping better. I was making more money or more opportunities were coming. I could go on and on. So I'm a huge proponent of that. Just setting it down. You don't need to do it all and you don't need to do it all the time. And it actually is counterproductive when you do that. But that is a whole other topic. I could go on and on about that one. I have to ask you this question because we've kind of alluded to it a little bit in our talk. Where do you see yourself in 5 years, Carrie?
Ooh, where do I see myself? Oh my gosh. Really what I am most excited about is the video stuff. I kind of brought it up more than a few times. So I'm so bad at it. I have to be honest. Like I am so uncomfortable. I'm just really, I think about it a lot. Like, what am I going to do? I have like so many notes about what I want to do with video, and probably specifically YouTube. I'm kind of using TikTok as a place. Like I'm kind of thinking of it as like my little, like my practice area for YouTube, because TikTok is just so much more informal than a produced YouTube video. And so it's almost like a way for me to explore like what I'm going to do with video. But I would love to see myself in 5 years, like being comfortable on camera and just not being so like feeling so vulnerable. Yeah, I mean, because it's like as a blogger, you're writing and you can edit what you write, of course. You edit what you write, you're careful about what you say. And on video, like you can't really hide your expressions and it is a whole different ball game. And it's just to me it feels so vulnerable. So I would love to feel more confident. I would love to have like built an audience where I feel connected and confident.
Well, you seem really excited about it, and I think that that will serve you. And if you will move past those fears and the vulnerability eventually if you keep at it. So I'm excited to see how this works out for you. I think it's awesome to dive into something like a little bit different than writing out your blogging. And I'm such a strong believer in if something feels uncomfortable or weird or scary or all of them, that you need to do it anyway, because that's probably a sign that it's just like something that you need to conquer. And you already know that. You're already there. You're like, yes, this is uncomfortable and vulnerable, but I want to do it anyway. So good for you. I'm excited to watch that unfold.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, it's not like skydiving. Like, I don't think about skydiving like, oh, I want to do that. It's like, no way am I doing skydiving. But video, I keep watching other people's videos. And it's almost like the same feeling I had with blogging, whereas I read blogs for at least a year or two. And I just felt like I want to add my voice. And I feel that same way about video. It's like, I have something to say too. And I don't quite know how I'm going to say it or how I'm going to do it, but I just feel like compelled to be part of it.
Oh, I love how you worded that. And did you know that I'm a skydiver?
Oh no.
Oh, I thought you said that because you knew. That's funny.
No, it's just
that's
be like
funny.
my worst fear.
It's so funny because a lot of people say that. My husband and I are both skydivers, and for us, it is the most calming, peaceful thing ever. So when I hear the word, I'm like, oh, lovely. But other people are like, panic, crazy.
Wow, that is so hilarious. I had no idea. I mean, unless I read it somewhere and my subconscious brought it out. But yeah, no, like that's one of those things that like there's like absolute zero interest.
Yeah, if you have no interest, then you probably shouldn't do it. Most people are like, yeah, maybe I'd try it. But yeah. Anyway, that was awesome. I loved your answer for that, Carrie. If you had one takeaway for food bloggers along the lines of niching down or anything that we've talked about, what would it be?
Okay, I actually have two. And one is to just remember that it's a marathon, not a sprint. And so if you're starting out, just like pace yourself and just try to do a little bit every day, like try to do some good work every day. And then the second piece of advice is to really stay focused on your content, because I see a lot of bloggers who are really like they make like 10 pins per blog post, and it's almost like they get or like trying to make a video for every blog post. But I really believe in making lots of good quality content. And like the only way you can do that is every day you're finding a new recipe you want to make, or you're updating an old recipe, but you're really like constantly working on your content rather than kind of like the supporting pieces, because you can get easily distracted. So even like for me with video, I was getting really distracted, and then I wasn't publishing as much. But if you really want to be successful, and I mean, a lot of us are depending on this income now. And so for me, I think the advice is to stay focused on your content and just not get too distracted.
That's great advice. Thank you so much for being here, Carrie. It was such a pleasure to chat with you. You're very fun and easy to talk to. So thanks for taking the time and adding all this value to food bloggers' lives and businesses. Thank you so much,
Megan.
Yeah, this was fun. So before you go, do you have a favorite quote or additional words of inspiration for food bloggers?
Oh my gosh. Well, I think I would just reemphasize the marathon, not a sprint. I have to tell myself that all the time. Like not overworking, not like just thinking about the short term. It's just keeping that in mind and really thinking about like those long-term goals. And I mean, like a 5-year marathon is a long marathon. So don't, burn yourself out.
Yes, great advice. We will put together a show notes page for you, Carrie. If anyone wants to go look at that, we'll just have takeaways and anything that we've talked about. You can find that at eatblogtalk.com/clean eating kitchen. Carrie, tell everyone where they can find you online.
Yeah, so I am on Instagram, I'm Clean Eating Carrie, but then on YouTube and TikTok, I'm Clean Eating Kitchen, which is my blog name. So I'm kind of hanging out there a lot in those places these days. So you can find me there, and I look at my messages on Instagram, all the time. So feel free to reach out, and I love connecting with other bloggers.
Great. Well, thank you again so much for being here, Carrie, and thank you for listening today, food bloggers. I will see you next time.
We're glad you could join us on this episode of Eat Blog Talk. For more resources based on today's discussion, as well as show notes and an opportunity to be on a future episode of the show, be sure to head to eatblogtalk.com. If you feel that hunger for information, we'll be here to feed you on Eat Blog Talk.